What's going on, everybody? Who now officially kicking it with RJ? Want you guys to kick up to feet, kick off and choose, get something to eat, get something to drink. Today, I'm going to be ranking every betrayal in the 3D universe. And before we really get into it, I want you guys to smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. It really helps your algorithm. And anyways, let's get right into it. So before we really dive into it, I'm going to be ranking every betrayal based on how good they are the signs good, how iconic is a betrayal, and is a good build up to it. Anyways, let's get started. Alright, first, Vice City Stories, Jerry Martinez. Now, Jerry Martinez betrays Victor twice. First with him framing for the marijuana and the prostitute that Victor brought onto the base under his orders. This was likely to pull the heat off himself and put on the Victor before it was too late for Jerry. And then, after Victor's out of the army and working for Phil, Martinez then sends them both into an ambush, thus cementing his antagonist status. Martinez likely does this to get rid of loose ends where Victor and Phil didn't trust Martinez and wanted to take care of them permanently. Now, honestly, I put this in B tier. This is a good betrayal. It's a bit different compared to most, with the hierarchy, army, all that stuff, but you see it coming. It's not really fleshed out enough in the little time we see Martinez, and it could have used more time and more ambitions to do so for both betrayals, army and out of the army. But it impacts the entire story and it gets Victor into the crime world, so B tier is definitely a good spot for this. Next, the Mendes brothers betraying Victor and Lance. This one I saw it coming. I mean, I think anyone would see this coming. They always seem very shady and distrustful. They most likely betrayed them due to the Vance crime family gaining a lot of power, and they viewed them as potential threats. They also likely found out from Martinez that it was Victor and Lance that ripped off the coke shipment, thus giving him more of a reason to kill Victor and Lance. Now this one, to me personally, this is a C tier betrayal. It's alright, but you see it coming, and it impacts Victor as they were the ones responsible for Lucid's death, but other than that, it's an okay betrayal. Alright, next, Vice City, 1986. 2 years later, Ricardo Diaz and Gonzalez setting up Tommy and Victor's deal. And while they didn't betray Tommy personally, they betrayed their supposed friend Juan Cortez in doing so, and even Victor Vance, who worked for both of them in 1984. This is alluded to in Gonzalez's last appearance in Vice City Stories, where Diaz tells him that every deal Gonzalez gets wind of, Diaz must know about. This sets up the entire story of Vice City, and is done primarily for money and power on Diaz's part. This, to me, is an A-tier betrayal. Now while it's found out rather quickly, it sets up the entire story. There are a lot of layers and players to it, and it's super iconic in how it unfolded. And then, there was Lance Vance betraying Tommy. Lance in the final confrontation with Sonny Farrelly turns on Tommy in an attempt to get rid of Tommy, and finally run things by himself in Vice City. Lance does this because he feels that he was being mistreated by Tommy, where Tommy yelled at Lance in the second mission barbell for the Vercetti estate because there was a problem with a bar owner and the gang he was using to protect his business. And Lance was just sitting on his ass at the estate's bar, handling it. Lance didn't like that Tommy called him out for his mistake, and felt that Tommy wasn't giving him his fair slice. So Lance starts working against Tommy secretly, and aligns himself with Sonny Farrelly. This stems all the way back to Vice City Stories, when Victor was yelling at Lance for being stupid, and Lance goes out of his way to somehow make it worse. Lance is a highly emotional, somewhat smart idiot who makes huge deals out of nothing. Even when Tommy was giving him more of his fair slice, he felt that wasn't even enough. This, to me, is an S tier betrayal. Now if you look hard into the story, you can kind of see it coming. Like when Lance emotionally calls Tommy, and when he's always mentioning Tommy's guys, but they never show up. Like an accounting for Syndicate mission, and even the finale. But if you're a casual player, it kind of seems to come out of nowhere. This is one of the most iconic and most talked about betrayals in GTA history, and it's something that always hurts players when they play it. Then, there was Sonny Farrelly betraying Tommy. Now this isn't outright said, but it's heavily used and implied throughout the entire story. In 1971, Sonny sends Tommy to kill one man in Harwood. When Tommy gets there, there were 11 men waiting to ambush him. Tommy then kills all the men and gets arrested, thus giving him the name the Harwood Butcher. Tommy then has a Farrelly lawyer who talks a heavier prison sentence down to 15 years, and Tommy serves all 15. In 1986, Tommy gets out, and Sonny sends him down to Vice City to keep people from wondering about the whole situation with Tommy and Sonny. Sonny seemed to talk Tommy's 15 years up to him, like on the phone when Tommy first calls him, like it was no big deal. And over time, Tommy starts to piece together that Sonny definitely had something to do with the Harwood incident. And upon the final confrontation, Sonny says that those 15 years were his to spend, kinda casually confirming that he was likely the one that betrayed him all them years ago, and just put a friendly face on for Tommy upon his survival. This, to me, is a definite A tier betrayal. There we go. This is a prolonged betrayal that isn't outright said, and impacts the entire story, and it leads to Tommy's rise and the start of the Farrelly's fall. It's generally debated whether Sonny did it or not, but it's very iconic in the way that it started the entire story, and it gives Tommy a deadly but fierce past. Alright, next, San Andreas, 1992, 6 years later. Big Smoke and Ryder betraying Grove Street. Now this is one of the most iconic betrayals in GTA history, and this is something that precedes the main story. The introduction prequel video shows that Smoke was convinced by Crash to work with the Ballas and Vagos in participating in the crack game, thus potentially taking Grove Street to another level with the money and power it could bring in. Smoke then recruits Ryder in this, and tries to do the same with Sweet. Sweet refuses due to his morals not letting him step into the hard drug game. Smoke likely asked Sweet to do this to prevent his assassination by the Ballas with Tenpenny, likely ordering the hit due to him having connections with most of the gangs across Los Santos. After Sweet refuses and Tenpenny insists on Sweet's death after arguing with Smoke on the phone, the assassination is carried out, but instead of Sweet getting killed, Denise Johnson is killed instead. With this, Smoke is likely looking for any opportunity to get the Grove Street families into the crack game. Smoke likely hides out with the Johnson house to kill Sweet after the funeral, seemingly due to how he comes at Carl in the beginning. After this, Smoke tries once again to convince Sweet to join the heavy drug game. Sweet again refuses, leading to the potential ambush when Carl, Sweet, Smoke, and Ryder went to the drive-thru. Even Smoke's living situation is telling, with him being the only senior member living outside of Grove Street in Balla territory over in Idlewood. The betrayal is hinted at more and more with Smoke's missions. Crash is always seen at Smoke's house, and his missions have nothing to do with helping the Grove Street families. Like the mission Running Dog took place in the same street that Smoke's crack palace is on. So Smoke might have been scoping out the area, seeing who operates on the street and what potential opposition is currently residing on it. And then wrong side of the tracks, has Smoke deal with Vagos and the Sanfierro Rifa. The gang is the main muscle for the local syndicate, an operation that both Smoke and Ryder do business with. And then Just Business likely deals with the same Russians that Tenpenny sent CJ to take care of when CJ does some jobs for Crash. And then Big Smoke and Ryder then leave Sweet seemingly to the police or to die until Carl goes in and saves him, showing more of the disloyalty to Sweet. But they then later show up to save Carl and Sweet, still showing some loyalty to a degree. The big reveal is when Caesar shows Carl the meet spot where Crash, Balla members, Ryder, and Smoke are all meeting with the infamous Green Saber, likely getting rid of it or something. Now you all know where this is going on the list. Top of the list, S tier. Why? This is one of the most brilliantly done betrayals in GTA history, or even video game history. Ryder and Smoke are two characters that players, including myself, love. We love seeing them on screen. They seem to get along with everyone. They seem to get either funny or interesting. They're really good characters. And for them to work for the other side, to work for the Ballas, to work for Crash, pretty much going against everything that Sweet and Carl stand for, just really hits you in the gut, stabs you in the back. It's just one of those things that's like, whoa. And you can see, if you really pay attention to the story, that Smoke didn't really want to do this at first. He didn't want to turn on Sweet, but he had to, because like he said in the end, the money and the power caught up to him. This is a really brilliantly done betrayal. Now I will say I'm not a huge fan of the Ryder stuff. That I'll talk about in another video, but for when it comes to the betrayal all around, it's really well done. It's just a really good betrayal. So S tier, top of the line, one of the best I've ever seen in GTA history, or gaming history. Alright, next, Liberty City Stories, 1998, 6 years later. Vincenzo Lucky Chili betrays Tony after Tony does a couple jobs for him. Vincenzo did not like Tony from the get-go. He likely viewed Tony as a threat, as Vincenzo likely gained a lot of respect in the time that Tony's been in hiding. Every job Vincenzo gives Tony is always with a condescending and disrespectful attitude. He makes it known that he does not like Tony, and Tony doesn't like him either. After more jobs, Vincenzo sends Tony to grab a vehicle that is supposedly filled with drugs. Tony then goes to the car and is soon surrounded by police. Tony makes it out and calls Vincenzo, enraged that he set him up. Vincenzo claps back, saying that he helped set Tony up in this town. Tony, not willing to hear any of it, he quits working for Vincenzo right on the spot, and takes the car to the crusher and has it destroyed. Vincenzo then has Tony go to the shipyard and board the ship, supposedly to make up for what happened. This is a setup. Vincenzo sends a bunch of guys with chainsaws to kill Tony. Tony gets through all of them, and eventually comes face to face with Vincenzo. He then kills him, thus ending this little feud within the Leone family. Alright, this is a D tier betrayal, just because it's one of the more smaller ones when it comes to the more broad impact. It could have been more important, leading to a potential civil war within the Leones, but it didn't, thus making Vincenzo and his betrayal have little impact overall, since Salvatore doesn't really mention this whatsoever. Alright, next, GTA 3, 2001, 3 years later. This is full of betrayals. At the very start, Catalina betrays Claude by shooting him and leaving him for dead at the Liberty City bank job. This is the main catalyst for the entire story, leading Claude to do what he can to get his revenge on Catalina. There is not much backstory to this due to what happening at the very start, but it is known that Catalina uses the men she dates to get ahead, and at that point, Claude was useless to her, and she goes to Miguel right after this. Catalina then kidnaps Maria and has a ransom of $500,000. Upon delivery of the money, Catalina then screws Claude over again, takes his money and Maria, and tries to leave and have Claude killed again. This fails, and Claude follows her chopper and kills her, thus ending his path for revenge that Claude was on. This, to me, this is definitely tier A, a little bit above the Diaz stuff. Catalina's betrayal starts Claude's journey for revenge, and it causes a citywide war. While there isn't much backstory other than Catalina using her relationships with men to get ahead, it's still a very iconic betrayal, and it's still talked about to this day. Alright, next, Salvatore Leone. Salvatore Leone then betrays Claude after Maria tells him that her and Claude were an item. Salvatore over the years becomes more and more paranoid over time, likely starting all the way back in 1992 when CJ gained his trust and robbed his casino. Salvatore then sets a car bomb and has Claude go to it under the guise that it's a mess and needs to be taken care of. Claude is warned off by Maria and goes to meet her, and meets Asuka Kason, who has him go to her jetty and Staten Island. Once somewhat settled, Claude has Asuka prove that his ties are cut between him and the Leones. Claude then goes to the red light district and assassinates Salvatore, thus ending his reign. This, to me, this is a B tier betrayal. It's a decent betrayal, but there's not really much build up to it other than the mentions of Salvatore's paranoia, and it's kind of a one and done type deal, where there's not much impact other than having St. Mark's pretty much closed off at this point with heavy shotguns. But to the story, not much really happens. Then there was King Courtney of the Yardies. King Courtney betrays Claude for the Clement cartel. King Courtney has Claude do a few jobs for him at first, such as getting gang cars for him and killing Diablos. Courtney has Claude do one more thing by having Claude go get a vehicle from a parking lot. Once Claude gets to that vehicle, he finds a note from Catalina, and a bunch of spanked up men strapped with bombs run at Claude to try and blow him up. Claude narrowly escapes this, and the Yardies attack him regularly after this. This, to me, this is probably a tier C type of betrayal. It's an alright betrayal. It'd be a little better if we finally saw King Courtney in person. The spanked up bad men are pretty cool and memorable, but other than that, the Yardies going after Claude after this, it's not really a huge betrayal compared to Salvatore or even Catalina. Alright, next, Claude. Now Claude isn't really innocent when it comes to betrayals. He betrays a few gangs on his own. The Diablos and the Yakuza are his victims. Claude works for the Diablos and then betrays him later on for the Uptown Yardies, just to help gain rep and to possibly infiltrate the Yardies in doing so. Claude then betrays the Yakuza by killing Kenji and giving the Yakuza gang card to the Yardies. He kills Kenji to help spark a gang war, with the Yakuza and the cartel for down love, and likely to get closer to his revenge mission with Catalina. And with the Yardies, he does it to gain favor with the Yardies who are aligned with the cartel. Now I'd say this is definitely a B tier betrayal. Claude betraying the Yakuza is pretty iconic and talked about heavy among fans, but there's really no reason to this other than Claude's revenge mission. Same with the Diablos, who Claude betrays for the same reason, but less reasoning behind it. It's okay, it's talked about, it's iconic, but without a lot of reasoning behind it, or something letting players understand more than rather than us just theorizing heavily about it, it takes it back a ton. Alright, that is going to be it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list. I really enjoyed making it. Betrayals in the 3D universe are very interesting. They go from really grounded to kind of stupid, you know, like from San Andreas to Liberty City Stories, like completely different. Where like in San Andreas, you kind of saw it coming, but you didn't. Where in Liberty City Stories, like you knew this guy was a snake. It was 100% he was going to betray you. But yeah, so if you guys have any ideas for any future tier lists or lore videos or even games you want me to play, leave it in the comments below. I'll check it out, and if I like it, you'll be seeing it. So anyways guys, before I leave, I want you guys to smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. It really helps your algorithm. And anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care now. Bye.